Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Riffin with Griffin. As you know, this has been a fantastic ride. I really appreciate all the feedback, all the love people are giving me. And, you know, each week, sometimes I say, this is another special episode, but honestly, this is legitimately another special episode, another special guest, one of my best friends in the world, the talented, been in the business 29 years, here, the fabulous Dane Cook.
All right, that was a good rehearsal. Let's bring the energy up a little bit.
I'm surprised like a person doesn't come over and go, you know, Mr. Cook doesn't like.
It's great to be here, man.
I'm so glad you're here. I've been hounding you. How long have I been hounding you?
We've been texting back and forth. I said, I'm going to do it.
I've been hounding.
When I'm ready, when you fix your lighting in here, I said,
Yeah, this lighting's not good for ultra white. You know what I mean?
This is good if we were making a Scorsese film in here.
Well, I don't know. I know you're too busy to listen to my podcast, you know.
No.
Yeah. Everyone says the same thing. I've heard some clips. Just whatever.
I heard you with the Stephen Wright episode and the Bob Goldthwait episode.
Yeah, but I'm always looking for a new theme song, and I had a good one last week and the week before, but here's another great theme song.
Okay. We don't judge this theme song. This is
No, we're not judging.
We enjoy it.
We can enjoy it. If you have something to say, you can say something.
You know us. We just can we swear on this? What's your...
Yeah, you can.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. We can. If you don't like this fucking theme song, it's fine. But this theme song is sent in by Cody Cachet has sent this one in. This is from Cody, everybody.
This is Riffin with Griffin.
Little 90s funk to it.
The 90s song already.
I know.
How can you get permission to do that?
They changed it a little bit, though, I think.
Oh, it's like Ice Ice Baby?
Yeah.
On the stage or in your ear, he's the man you're gonna wanna hear. From the
little flows going
to your headphone set. Here's the message that you won't forget. You're about to get shook.
Not bad, see?
I'm popping my head.
I'm gonna wake you up. I just dropped the beat. Now it's time for you to get out your seat. Drop the beat, now get out your seat.
Wow.
Drop the beat, now get out
Took
your
to the bridge.
seat. Drop the beat, now get out your seat. Drop the beat, now get out your seat. Drop the beat, now get out your seat.
Get out your seat, Dave.
Now get out your seat. Drop the beat, now get out your seat.
Wait, here comes the good part. Listen.
Riffin, Griffin, when you hear that song. Riffin, Griffin, sing it all night long. Riffin, Griffin, when you hear that song. Riffin, Griffin, sing.
All right, we want to thank Cody Cachet for sending in another banger. I'm going to compile all these songs together. I might come out with my own EP. But anyways, the fabulous Dane Cook is here, and thank you, sir, for coming in once again.
Hell yeah, man. Of
So
course.
I know, let's get the business stuff out of the way.
All right.
You got your 29th year, and you're going on tour again.
Yeah. A big tour.
You're going on a huge 47-city tour.
At least right now. They're probably adding cities as we're speaking.
29 years in the business.
Yeah.
And you're still going on a 47-city tour.
Yeah, because, and I think you understand this more than anybody, when you feel like you're primed up and the material is honed and probably overcooked sometimes because we're going up every
No pun
night.
intended.
All right.
When it's cooked.
You need to get out there. You need to bring it out. And you know what? This I've been toiling around LA for almost 3 years since Troublemaker. So it's the most amount of time I've worked material before getting back out on the road and doing an official tour. Last year was like an unofficial underground, like, am I funny here still tour?
Right.
And then once the feedback came, it was like, let's go.
You know, it's weird because it's like I feel like people don't know you. They think they know you.
You say this.
No, I'm telling you, people don't know you.
You say this. People don't know me.
People don't know you, man. They don't know anything about you. You're from Boston. You know, your career.
How does?
All right, let me tell you why.
Okay.
You came up at a time that was like pre a lot of the stuff that's happening right now.
Okay.
You were actually on the forefront of like social media.
Right.
Like you saw MySpace and said, "Oh, this." What was your thought?
That was like, this is my forte. I'm a computer geek. I love all that stuff. And I loved promotion. I really loved meeting fans and cultivating all the behind the scenes, from flyers to posters to album art. So getting online and doing all that stuff in HTML code was like right up my alley. So, you know, I'd go home every night after the club and I'd just correspond with people all night.
You know, it's like
play video games with people all night.
And then but then like, did you even know that you had the idea that like MySpace was going to be as large as it was, and it turned into like that was like the grandfather of what social media is right now?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we wish it stuck around for reasons that
It sort of did. We can count Facebook, Vine, and all these kinds of things. Instagram. That's all stems from MySpace.
I said I was there the day it was born, and I held it when it died.
Yeah, you were right there, like, come on, Facebook, come on.
But it just felt like the right platform for me because it's funny when you say I don't think people know you. I feel like I built a fan base entirely on accessibility.
I think your
so
fans
it's interesting.
know you. Yeah, I know. Okay, so I guess I'm speaking from as a comic world.
But wait a minute, if my fans know me, who else is
doesn't
supposed to know
right?
me?
Well, I mean, but you just
My haters?
Yeah, your haters don't know you.
They
right?
love me too.
That's what I'm saying. But I find you as a figure that is like loved by fans and hated by fans at the same time. You
Right.
had such a tumultuous, just so many people. Like it was actually cool to hate Dane Cook.
That's right. I actually jumped on that bandwagon as well.
Yeah, I remember watching The Office, and they had an episode where they make reference to you, and I was
Yes.
like, wow, that's super famous.
Yes, I loved it. I loved even the hazing. I loved the Family Guy stuff or SNL. Whoever was taking a shot at me, like Baron Holtz did something years ago and ended up online. The only time it started to ping me in a way that was negative was when my family and my fans were starting to feel like they had to defend me.
Right.
And that was tricky. That was hard. But the rest of it, I'm totally serious. I secretly, as a non-controversial kid growing up, as somebody who didn't make waves, I was pretty milquetoast in some ways. I was creating this image that was like, hey man, if people love and hate you, that's better because then they're keeping you out there. They're talking about you or they're protecting you.
So you say you grew up a nerd. Is that?
Well, not so much a nerd, just an introvert. You know,
See,
I wish I was a nerd.
About people that what I mean to say, so people don't know you are very introverted. You know?
Yeah. That's always been kind of part of me. The outgoing character came out on stage.
Right.
And the rest of it was a lot of isolation when I was a kid, a lot of anxiety, a lot of panic attacks, and not feeling very good about myself as a person, and yet finding that I could from what I was starting in stand-up. That was bleeding into my life.
Yeah, so starting young, it was like a lot of insecurity, a lot of like, what made you? What gave you the courage to be like, let me try this on stage?
Well, I knew I wanted to do stand-up when I was like 12.
Oh yeah,
I was watching SNL. I would sneak up watch Johnny Carson, and I didn't know what half the jokes meant really, but I loved him. I loved that guy. I loved seeing how he operated. I liked when a joke went wrong, and then he came out of character and kind of like took the piss out of himself.
Yeah, he was the best at bombing.
I've actually heard, I don't know if it's true, that some of those jokes were meant to bomb. That he wrote stuff in there that he could then have asides.
Yeah.
And I love that.
He had a great look, like that look to camera, like, well, guess that one didn't work. You know?
Yeah. And for me, it's like anytime I've done specials where people have heckled, it probably has always stayed in or is on the album because I like that. I like that it's like it shows that you're fallible and that we're all, we're going to come back and tag you, but in that moment, you become very real and you become very open to people really understanding what makes you tick because you've come out of the act and now you're dealing with somebody directly.
Right. And so then you're young, you're watching Carson, and then you decide, like, you knew at that moment, I want to do this.
Yes.
And then it was like 16. Was it before 16 that you decided to try to go on stage, or?
When I was 16, so when I started high school, I was doing drama. I was in Boston, Arlington, Massachusetts, where I grew up. And I started doing drama, and I did plays. I did like West Side Story and Grease and all these plays.
Wait, who were you in Grease?
I was Danny Zuko.
Don't get an attitude.
What do you think?
Look at. Of course you were Danny.
Who am I, Mooney?
Yeah, I thought you could have been, one of those.
I had the hair, man. Yeah, I had the hair. It's the one thing that's still sticking around too, fortunately.
Yeah. And you were a singer. Obviously, you were like, you remind me of Tupac right now. That people didn't know that.
I had a lot of street cred in Arlington. I'll tell you that much. But I was doing plays and I loved it. And I found that it was an escape. It was actually, comedy was more of I liked that I didn't have to feel so afraid as I felt kind of off stage.
Yes.
When I hit the stage, it was like everything was there, kind of there, or getting there as years went by.
And then when you so I know doing the plays and stuff, it's like there's something about that where you're still collaborating and you're doing someone else's work, but I know that there's always that pull to be like, let me do my own thing.
Yeah.
And the first time you do that, it is such a magical experience.
And the first time I did it was so unexpected. I don't know if I ever told you. I was at Catch a Rising Star in Cambridge, Massachusetts. David Cross used to have like an open mic, like sketch night, cross comedy. And what you would do is you would sign up, and then you would show up the week after. It's kind of like what Kill Tony does now, which is you sign up, you show up, and then they randomly they pick the names that they want. So I went a couple of weeks and watched and was like, can I even do this? I don't know if I can get up there and hold my own. I could play a character in a play. Well, he went up on stage the third week I was there, and he went through the list, and about the fifth or sixth person, he said, okay, where's Ernest Glenn? Long pause. I knew this guy didn't show. My hand went up. He pointed at me, he goes, you're Ernest Glenn? I said, yes. And he goes, all right, my intro. All the way from the fifth row, Ernest Glenn. So it was my first set ever. And
as Ernest Glenn.
As Ernest Glenn, yeah. Ernest Glenn, wherever. I try to find him on Facebook over the years. And I want to thank him, man. You didn't show up and you set my career in motion. Thank you, Ernest Glenn. It's also the name that I use to when I check into hotels, which now I can't do anymore.
Glenn, I'll be like, Glenn Ernest, So then you go up. Yeah. Was it? And I'm sure because I always find that the first time you do it, there's like no fear. Even if you have fear, there's something like it just works. Did you have a good set? Is really what I'm asking.
Probably because I didn't have any time to be nervous because I didn't know I was going up. So it was better.
Perfect.
And I don't know how you are about when you get to your venue, but for me, from that moment all the way for 29 years, I like being late and walking in and they're like, you're up right now. I don't like sitting around and thinking about the show, or I don't need to write everything down again. Right. That's not my system. I want to walk in and have them go, you're late. Come on, let's go. Let's get up there right now. I'm better like that. A little frantic and a little bit unsure. That's good.
So then, all right. So then,
by the way, you're doing a great job, man.
What, you like this,
dude? This is so different.
I want to make people comfortable. I want people to.
I know this guy, and I've also had the pleasure of working with and workaholics and all this. And it's like to be able to sit here and kibitz with you about all these
because it's
inside
like,
baseball stuff.
I guess when I say that people don't know you, I realize that I don't know you. I want to know more about where you came from. I was
going to say only you.
It's only me, but but the thing is like I'm one of these guys. Is like I'm around, and if I hear people talking about another person, I'm like, well, have you talked to him? Do you know this guy? Like, what's up? Because like I say, your career has been so, like, there were very few comics that have reached the success level that you had. There was a certain time where it was like, it was like cook,
Yeah, it got really bonkers.
It got really bonkers, right?
Here's
the insecure guy. Next thing you know, you're dating Jessica Simpson. You're dating a chick from like tens, bombshell.
Well, you got to remember something. I also was a kid that never had a date or really never had a girlfriend. So there was a period in my life where I was like, I just got caught up in the entire thing. But fortunately, I could always come back to stand-up. Stand-up always reset me.
Boom.
And kept me honest. Because stand-up, it's like you can't. Fame don't matter after 2 minutes. If you're not hitting us with some jokes, you're fucking dead.
It's true.
You suck. In fact, you suck more because we really gave it up for you, and now you are mailing it in, or you're just sucking.
Yeah, it's even worse because it's like, that thing that happens when someone goes, all right, everybody, Dane Cook, and everybody's like, I remember at the Laugh Factory, by the way. This is a few years ago.
Okay.
And I remember seeing a group of kids, and they said, and I was, and the guy said, everybody, you were after me. Everybody, Dane Cook. And I saw a kid go, oh, he was like, I can't believe I'm seeing Dane Cook live right now.
But there was another guy behind him like this.
This guy. I mean, so, okay, well, let's skip ahead. Like, you're from Boston, you're 16, you did it, you knew you wanted to do it.
Okay.
And then
because I want to get back to answering your question about, because I feel differently about what I think people know of me, and we're going to meet in the middle by the end of this podcast.
That's exactly what I want. I know.
Because
but first, caller from Texas. Is that Cook, you fucker? This is Ernest Glenn.
That'd be perfect.
That'd be great. What if I'm like, and Ernest Glenn, come on out?
What if Larry King called in with a question? From like Hoboken. Yeah. Everything comes full circle. Okay, so where are we on the timeline?
Okay, you're on the timeline. Okay, now you know you can do it.
Let me fess up here.
When did you go up as Dane Cook?
I went up the next time, the very next open mic, which was a few months later.
Did anybody remember that you weren't?
No.
Nobody was like, "Isn't that Ernest Glenn?"
No, but my first hater ever in the industry was David Cross.
Oh,
he did
wow.
not like me, and I overheard him saying it.
What did he say?
He said something disparaging like yeah, that guy, he shouldn't even be in here. It was like he just didn't like my shtick.
Does that kind of stuff fuel you? Even at a young age?
Well, I'd been used to it from elementary school up. I always felt like I was getting digged at.
Oh.
I had a lot of things like I had bad acne when I was in junior high, cystic acne, which sucked. It was gross.
Yeah.
And I was already loathing myself. Now I've got mountains of pus growing on my face.
As if God is like, you already hate yourself, so
Yeah.
you know what we're going to do? Let's give him some pus on his
Yeah, let's
face.
push this to the limit. Let's see if this kid can break before he's hitting
a limp,
puberty.
Yeah.
So here I am getting hammered,
yeah.
bullied basically, and probably actually more so myself, like beating myself up. And then now I'm introduced to in the industry, wherever you're at, you're going to have people that you're out of vogue to them already.
Yeah.
So it prepared me for what
You almost want to thank that sixth grade bully to be like, hey, thanks, dude, because now I'm prepared for the business.
You know what the great thing is? That sixth grade bully wrote me years and years later and apologized.
Oh, sweet.
And then he was like, "Can I take it?"
Oh, that's great. When you become famous, all your bullies are like, I used to bully that
Yeah,
kid.
I should have been like this. You know what? 2 tickets for you. Meet me in an alley behind the Wang in Boston and just wail the shit out of him.
I always used to say I always want to thank those girls that I tried to get with early on.
Right.
All that rejection prepared me for Hollywood. It really did prepare me for going to auditions and them saying no, and then you
Right.
get that one yes. So all right, so David Cross hates you. So he's the first guy that set you on this path. And
Yeah.
well, people are gonna hate me.
Yeah. It was like, okay, welcome to show business. It's great up there, but it's still a funky gig. And just for the record, stand-up comedians are still above anybody else my favorite people on earth. We are complex. There is a lot of dark corners. There's a lot of reasoning for why we do what we do, why we need to. But I adore comics and I grew up loving them. So yeah, every once in a while somebody comes along and spanks me, but I don't really hold it against anybody. You know what I mean?
Well,
I never took it that personal.
Yeah, I just realized you're just a complex guy with a lot of emotions and a lot of feelings. So if people don't necessarily know you, like the comics or people they don't know you have this quirk about these quirks about yourself. Because now I'm thinking right now, it's like this thing about you where you're like, I want to go right on stage when you get to the thing. Like that might be mistaken by some people as like, oh, this guy just wants to bump everybody and go, because he's like, the big guy. But in your thing, it's like, I need to get on stage right now.
Yeah,
I got to get this out.
I just meant for my shows, not even necessarily. I went through my bump years. I mean, everybody does. Everybody kind of, we can pick a name that 5 years ago said, I hate when people bump. And then he's bumping people. So everybody goes through a little
You
bit
were
of
the bump king.
I only at the Laugh Factory. I never went on the road ever.
Well, not the road, but I'm saying
No, but
in LA, I mean, there's so many people here in LA.
I didn't even do it at the Improv or at the store. But if I came into the factory, Jamie had set a precedent with me, which is when you come in, you're the belle of the ball. I want you to come in and make sure that you feel. And I probably at a young, albeit naive age coming into superstardom, let some of that go to my head. And as years passed, I was like, I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah, you hit 40 and you were like, what am I doing?
Yeah. It's like, I'm going to have enemies regardless, but I don't want to make them because somebody's just trying to do their spot and then go to, In-N-Out Burger.
Yeah. That's all the money they have left, for that. All right, I get that. That's a
But
honest thing.
let me dig in on this, and we can keep jumping back and forth.
it's cool.
'Cause
Go.
I like linear, but
You're on CD.
When I think
You're like, we're still at 16. We can't jump to 35. You're killing me right now. Okay, you're 17.
chronological.
All right, well, let's go back. We'll keep it in order.
When I think about the material that connected with people, I feel like the material that I've done, especially maybe over the last 10 years, has been so much more introspective. And
I agree.
if anything, it's like I was up on stage reading a letter from a hater that told me my parents died of cancer to get away from my shitty comedy. That was the exact email.
Yeah.
So I turned that into a routine on
Yes,
Isolated
yes,
Incident.
yes.
talked about my mom dying, talked about these things that were like, happening and for real. So where I'm sitting, I'm like, well, if people want to know me, it's all in the comedy.
Right.
I cheated on my girlfriend when I was younger. I did a whole bit about cheating. And it was like, for me, I felt like I'm giving you access to like my flaws and the things that I've done, like you, that, that have been missteps.
Right.
So
right.
I you might be right, but I feel like it's always been, I've been a little bit more candid than what I think I see sometimes with other comics that are very veiled behind their routine.
I know, but it's like I think the hard part, as I'm thinking about this more, is that you got to a point where you were so famous that it's almost hard to even hang out with people that aren't as famous as you. I mean, it's because I even see that, like, I'm even talking about it of a level of like, if you're a headliner, it's kind of hard to hang out with an open micer because you're talking about different things in a different way. Like, it's a different life experience. So, I mean, and you were like at the stratosphere. I mean, I remember, listen, man, and there was a time in LA where it was like going to Dublin's, and it was like, it was like you had to see Dane Cook. It was that kind
Dublin's,
of thing.
Yeah,
you were just like, it was just a dynamic force of like, and
I felt it. It was,
and then the MySpace crowd, the young people, you connected with these people,
right?
And
I was coming up with a college age crowd.
Right.
I had locked into them, and they were supporting me, and it was favorable. And I just rode the wave with them all the way to where it would go.
Yeah, and what you fuck yeah, you did.
Yeah, it was a tsunami.
But then what happens is you have comics who would be like, because that's what you did is very similar to say like Larry the Cable Guy. He knew his crowd.
Right.
I'm saying he knew his crowd. But that guy's a brilliant guy.
Yeah.
But he knew. But then for outsiders would be like, he's doing this dumb thing. He's like, no, he's not. He's talking to a specific crowd, and he knows how to talk to him. And that's what you were doing.
And by the way, same thing with me, but I'm the person also sometimes on the other side of it going like, this, I'm sick of this face, man. This guy needs to tap out.
By the way, the only time you've ever said anything to me about my comedy, I'll never forget it. This is great. It was I was doing a joke about Pacific Rim. Because the guy, they pull out a sword, and at the point I'm like, you're pulling the sword out now? Open with the sword. And you came up to me and you were like, you doing that Pacific Rim joke? Yuck. You said yuck. You don't even believe it, man. Don't do that anymore.
I did say that.
And I was like, oh wow, I knew that you really meant that to the point where you had to come say something.
I remember it. I remember
and I was
that.
like, okay, I'm not gonna do it anymore. But
I was like, oh, this guy is not being authentic at this point.
You thought that, and I was like, but I thought what I was saying is like that's the kind of relationship that you want. We would like to think that all comics have, but it's like, again, I really feel like you got into a stratosphere that you were just outside of that bubble. That it was hard for people to relate. It was hard for people to like understand your quirks. Do you feel misunderstood? Is basically what I'm asking.
I think that there was probably a period where I felt misunderstood because I still kind of misunderstood myself. I didn't have a playbook for stardom. I didn't have a playbook for grief. That I was experiencing.
There's no learning annex class.
Nothing.
How to be a superstar.
And very few people you can have a conversation with about it because nobody has felt that same pendulum swing of like, hey, you're hitting a level that nobody really understands, and you're also hitting a rock bottom that many people won't hit until years later with their parents or with the loss that we all face at some point. So imagine I'm embroiled. But, and again, this is where it's so interesting to hear how it looked on the outside. The support that I started getting from the generation of comics that already made it and didn't need or have anything to gain or lose from me.
Boom.
And then the comedians that were kind of in my wake that appreciated what I did and I could kind of mentor once I had enough success and failure to try to help. That was great. That was actually my kind of protective armor. The comics that I was coming up with outside of my graduating class out of Boston or New York, what was happening was this. They were getting hammered every day with questions from like DJs, and they would call me and tell me this and complain to me. Like, why aren't you doing what Dane did? Why aren't you How come your numbers aren't? And people started to resent that. Like people at my level that were also as talented or sometimes even more talented, well, they weren't getting the just due because we know it's not a line. You're not next.
Yeah, this is not a deli.
No, it's a blackjack table.
Number 75, your fame is ready. It doesn't work like that. It just doesn't work like that.
It does not work like that. Yeah. And so when that all happened, and I was holding on to these, people that, and I'm trying to think like Richard Lewis. Somebody I grew up watching on HBO, like, I love that guy. And he's always been like a champion. And then Jerry Lewis, as I got to know. So I'm getting to know, I did shows years back, Buddy Hackett. And I felt like a simpatico with the guys that had already made it. And by the way, had already hit their peaks and already hit lows before it levels out, which is kind of where I'm at now and becomes just like.
This is who you are.
It's not, it's like. I stand and deliver. I don't need to be the shiny new thing anymore. Did it, happy with it, played 100 arenas. Now I just want to connect with people. I want to have fun. I want to pay the rent. And I just want to have a blast. But that period of time, it when I think about like 05 and when everything.
Now you had just gotten, when did you get to LA?
LA was 98.
Okay, so you got to LA in 98.
Yep.
Let's go back to the timeline to get to this point where you're talking about right now. Because I want people to know.
I wish we had sound effects of like the sound of time travel.
So because let's lead up to you're at this pinnacle. Like it's like you're just flying high. That's 2005 on till whenever that was.
Right.
So 98 you get to LA.
98 came to LA. I was actually in San Francisco. I did the San Fran Comedy Contest.
And that actually, by the way, that San Francisco Comedy Contest, that was probably one of the first times where there's a line drawn in the sand between mainstream comedy,
right,
which you would be considered your mainstream. I'm going to please the audience,
right?
Because that's what we're fucking doing. We're entertaining, and then these people, the alternative, Doug Stanhope type, those people. Because
he was in my top 5,
and that's who was in your top 5.
Doug Stanhope, Mitch Hedberg. We were, so a very different. Show structurally where 3 different guys with 3 different mentalities came up. It was fun. And from there, a producer saw me and said, we're doing a show with Betty White and we need somebody to play her grandson. And I love your comedy and I love your energy. Would you come down? Never done a TV show, never been on a TV set.
Oh, wow.
But I took the gig and that's what got me to LA. So I ended up just coming here and living out of a hotel and doing this show and learning comedy acting TV wise from Betty White.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah.
See? I did not know that, Dane. So you did that. And
so I was out here and I was just kind of I was really languishing even with the show because it was not a popular show. It was a Saturday night 8:30 ABC show. My own family was like, we're not fucking staying home to watch this.
Isn't it hilarious that you're like, if you have the dream to be on TV and you get on TV and you think, and then people are still like,
yeah.
And even yourself, you start to go, oh, this actually isn't what I wanted. It's not the end. I'm not done.
But I was also in a situation where I'm probably not very good at this, so at least I can learn without too much judgment. It wasn't on my shoulders. It was a Betty White show. Marie Osmond played my mom, which was also mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And it was just a place for me to go and try to figure out, can I be on this side of the comedy spectrum? Can I do acting and all that kind of stuff?
So you're in LA.
It kept me here. And I started going to the Laugh Factory.
Right.
Jamie saw me, put me up one night, and he was just like, hey, listen, this can be your home base. And here's what kept me in LA. I was ready to go back to New York and Boston. I wanted to go back to New York and Boston. I was homesick, bad. I wasn't good on the road for long periods of time. My anxiety would kick in, and I just needed to be home. Home was like safe.
Got you.
But I'm like, okay, I'm going up here at the Laugh Factory. And after about 2 months, I said, I'm going to stay 2 months and I'm going to go home. And then I realized something was happening, which was really exciting, which was I was the only East Coast mentality kind of comic in a place that still had a lot of showcase guys from a little bit earlier back who had their white hot moment. So I was like a new guy from a new generation. And if I went back to New York, I was going to be one of many that were coming up. So I stayed here and said, I'm going to be a Boston comic in LA.
Yeah.
And it kept me here. For the first 5, 6, 7 years, I thought I'm going to go home next year. And I'm still here.
You're still here.
I know. I said, as long as there's work, I'm going to stay.
So then you're at the Laugh Factory, you're crushing there. And then because then when did Dublin start after that? Because it's 95, I don't remember.
Dublin started around 01, because I think it had a 5 or 6 year run.
Yeah,
right?
So you were here, so you were in LA for 4, 5, 6 years.
Yeah.
just doing the Laugh Factory.
That's it. Just doing Laugh Factory and the humble beginnings of the computer stuff, which was, AOL existed, the internet existed.
Yes.
It wasn't until 2000 till I finally hatched a plan to build a website and a web presence.
Yes, that's another. Okay,
And here's a fun fact: there was only one other person in comedy doing that at the time. There was only one other guy with a dynamic. I get a lot of the credit, but I always share it with this guy. There was one other guy who was doing it, and his site was cool, and he was interacting, and that was Joe Rogan.
Oh, yeah.
Rogan had a cool site.
Yeah.
It was an alien head with double horns.
Another freaking East Coast guy.
Yeah. Something in the water, man, back there.
Yeah.
It's like, and so I had my site going, Joe had his going, and then it was nobody else. It was like a lot of bands and not a lot of comedy or comedians.
Yeah, so then it was like, I remember your site. I remember it being like this dynamic thing.
Yeah. It was like the first Flash.
Yeah, it was like, oh,
website.
wow, what is this?
I spent my whole life savings on it.
Yeah.
I had $40,000 to my name in '98, and I found Lenny Kravitz's website, and I said, who made this? And I went and I found the company, and then I had my manager reach out, and he goes, this is going to be $35,000. You don't want to do this. And I was like, I need to do this. This is going to be the portal. This is it. So my whole life savings, and then I had to go back on the road.
Can you even imagine now spending that kind of money on a website?
Oh my God, I spent that on lunch.
What do you fly to Ibiza? Like, what do you? All right, so you got.
Yeah.
So you got the website.
The Ibiza in and out. Come on, man.
The Whole Foods in Ibiza. You went to so you got your website, and then MySpace started, and then you just were on the ground floor. Then.
Ready? MySpace is starting. Napster is starting.
Right.
And my first Comedy Central special, which was going to air once or twice. They were saying, we'll air this a couple of times, and it'll be on like late at night. They started playing that nonstop because the college kids were watching. So all those things were happening in 2000.
It was like a perfect storm.
Everything happened at the right time, man.
It really did, and you were ready for it, though. I was ready.
Were you?
How about this? Were you ready for it?
I believed I was, because the pipe dream was coming to fruition, and that instills you with confidence. Oh, this is actually working because I thought it would, but that doesn't. It's like that doesn't prepare you for the responsibility that comes with that as a business person, because then you turn into a business. You're making people money.
Right.
You're paying other people's mortgage based on how your film does. They could lose their house if you don't capitalize. So I wasn't ready to
be an enterprise.
just like being on that sitcom. I was learning as I went. The stand-up was the only thing I felt like a real control over, but all the stuff that was happening around it was just like, dude, I was just riding a wave. I really was. I was just boogie boarding out there and trying to figure out.
That wave was like that Gilligan's Island wave. Remember the surfer that he had to ride a wave all the way back to Hawaii? It was that kind of wave.
It was pretty unbelievable to go from where I had started to now I can call my mom up and say that everything I told you that I hoped would happen is happening, and I'm freaking out.
Wow.
My anxiety, everything was like I was getting tested on so many fronts, and that's before shit hits the fan. And here's what I said earlier today to somebody who was asking me about comedy. I said, when you make it to a level of success to where you're a household name, that's actually what you're actually achieving is a moment in your career where you're about to meet everybody that doesn't like you. And there's way more of those people.
Yeah.
And they're going to have a stronger opinion, sometimes more than the people that love you, that just kind of like, hey, we dig you. We're not really into all the drama. We just come see your show.
Right.
But haters work overtime.
Yes, they do.
Right?
I totally get that. I totally see that. So so now you get into this, like now you're super famous.
Now it's popping. Now everything's like a full tilt boogie. Yeah. I'm living in a carnival. I'm living in an amusement park. Every day is exciting, and I never know when the phone rings what producer or director or Lorne Michaels or somebody's going to be on that phone who's like, hey man, I'm a fan. Wanted to talk to you. Yeah.
Then you got to a point where, all right, so you're doing your specials. So you did the Comedy Central special, and I always remember this story you tell me about. Like, you had a vision for the Comedy Central special. You said, like, we should really tape an hour, and you did that, right?
Right. Okay. So I was selling Harmful If Swallowed out of my trunk before I had a record deal for 2 years. I recorded at the Laugh Stop in Houston. on a DAT player that they had, a DAT recorder.
Old school.
Yeah, old school.
Yeah.
And so I edited it out here with a buddy, Erik Schwartz. You know Erik?
Yeah.
Erik edited Harmful If Swallowed.
Oh, wow.
I brought the materials back. He was working at Premiere Radio cutting their commercials. I said, I need a computer I know computers, but I don't edit. Like, he goes, bring it over to Premiere Radio. We'll sneak in on weekends. So we would use his little laminate and we'd get in there and we edited Harmful. Sold it out of my trunk, wherever I went for a couple of years before Jack Vaughn and Comedy Central came in and said, we give you a record deal, which is also an interesting quick story, which I said, how many am I going to sell, do you think? I'm selling a lot out of my trunk. And they said 8,000. They said 8,000 tops. I said, I think it's going to be more. They go, the comedy album's dead, quote unquote. He goes, comedy album is dead.
Even back then,
this is back then. He said, it's a promotional piece. It's
Now
really,
it's dead.
it's a business card. I'm coming out with a new one, Erik.
So on 8-track, Cook.
He tells me it's dead. Well, okay, what do? I make a better deal because I'm like,
oh, since it's dead, then
it's dead. Then yeah, just give me the in
how
the
about
kitchen
everything
sink.
over 9,000? You give me
Sold like 90,000.
Yeah.
in the first week. And so what is happening at that point is
You're doing Madonna numbers at this point.
everything is getting it's like doubling and tripling, and it's getting insane in terms of like just the sheer amount of activity that goes around keeping the plates spinning once they start. And yeah, I was definitely freaked out, but I was also, it was like bliss because I had access now to comedy heroes that I came up with that actually wanted to talk to me and correspond with me, and that's one of the best parts of this job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally know what you mean.
For as prickly as comedians can be, and and we're competitive as fucking all get out. When we're talking shop or when we're like needing the community, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
man.
the community's there for you. I agree with that.
Yeah.
It's an interesting brotherhood.
Yeah, and it's like the community sometimes, we can hurt each other. I went through that with Louis and all that stuff. It's like stuff happens every once in a while that's like unfortunate and kind of not out of control, because I think he had some control of how it got out of control. But the goodwill that came from that is like friendships that made for life.
Well, I thought you were great on that episode of his show where he was coming to him as himself coming to talk to you about getting tickets to the concert. I thought that scene between you guys, I would have loved to have seen that be a real life, on the couch interview, or like this.
Right.
Like if he had a podcast and he had you on and you guys were just really shooting the shit. I thought it was a real genuine moment right there.
I knew why that was happening at the time. I knew why I had been targeted by him, and I knew that he was frustrated because I knew that Lucky Louie had gotten canceled, and I think he thought that was going to be like his moment, not knowing what he would do later, which was more dynamic.
Right.
And so he was frustrated. And Retaliation came out like a few weeks after that cancellation, and it just was a perfect storm. And he was at the factory, and it wasn't a good start with him. And I knew when he said that I had taken stuff from him that very night. I wrote him an impassioned email. I still have it, and I still have his response. And I basically said, Louis, please don't do this. This is something comics do at the back of the club, and we work it out if there's something that's like crossover or whatever. But don't put your boot on my neck, because you're respected. You're a comics comic. And he was not ready to acquiesce at that time. It wasn't until the episode where he had been backtracking it and saying things in interviews. I don't think he really took, but I think that parallel thinking. Yeah. And so the show was a way to kind of heal all that.
Oh, that's good.
And by the way, and I say this, and I'm not trying to sound like maudlin or like, what happened with him and the other story of like these other comedians and these women, like what happened to me and why I don't speak out on it unless I'm with friends is like, that's way more severe and serious than what happened with me. It still hurt, you know what I mean? And it hurt my fans and family. But in comparison, it's like he hurt careers over there in ways that were like, I would not even understand. You know what I mean? So I always have to kind of let people know that I don't make it all about me. We're talking about me, but like,
I get it.
I don't subscribe to the idea that I was a victim in that. I just think that it was like two people that were not on the same page whatsoever.
So that around this time though, like like I said, all the haters are coming out. It's like superstar fame, and then that's when you had some tragedies in your life,
Right.
That's how life is like fucked up sometimes.
Yeah.
Where it's like, here's everything, but we're gonna take this.
Right. It's that pendulum swing, because however far it swings in the positive direction, it's going to swing equally into the other side. I feel like life's like that. Not everybody has that same philosophy, but that's kind of the way I see the rhythm of the ebb and flow of life, or at least my experiences.
Now, do you find yourself then waiting for, like, if something good is happening, do you find yourself like, oh, where's the chair going to get pulled from under me? I think it's coming.
I think that I'm a little cynical as I've gotten older, but because we all get stung, or we all get spanked, from the experiences that we put ourselves into as performers, as artists. But I don't dwell. I don't think too much about it. I'm just like,
That's good.
I just off to the next show, man. I'm off to the next possibility. I love the rebuilding process.
Now, yeah, I was going to say, because I remember, I recall when you did the Vicious Circle.
Right.
So I thought to myself, what an ambitious thing, because it's like, to me, I thought that was the kind of thing where if you're a Dane Cook fan, this is the special where you tell people, remember that guy I was telling you about? You got to watch this.
Right.
And then after that, was that at that time the biggest thing you'd ever done?
Yeah, so that was like 06.
Yeah.
I think that aired. It was the biggest thing. It was the biggest venue I'd ever played. It was my homecoming to Boston. We did it at Boston Garden. So it was important to me on so many levels. The city that kind of brought me up and believed in me.
Yeah.
Just there was a lot of pressure there to go in. Called Marty Kullner, who had directed some comedy specials that I loved, like Carlin in the Round in '77. And I was fortunate enough that he signed on and was like, I'll direct this. The experience of that night, ready? This is how literally that day was the tipping point. My mom was already sick. She was already starting to fight cancer. We knew it was serious. We wasn't sure if she was gonna maybe she was so vibrant. We thought maybe
she'll fight this.
She'll fight it. Yeah. She couldn't come because she was too ill to travel. So I do that special. I have the set of my life. I'm at the top of my game. I feel like I'm using not all the tools I'm using now, but enough of the tools to make it interesting, hopefully. And then I go back to my hotel room and I break down. I'm sad because my mom was not there and she came to countless numbers of shows.
And this is a huge one.
She used to come get drunk on Kahlua sombreros and heckle me.
So wait. So your first bully was mom.
My mom would heckle me from the back of the Comedy Connection.
What would she say?
She would say, "Do the thing about when you caught me having sex with your father." And then somebody else would go, "Hey, shut up." And I go, "Hey, no, you shut up. That's my mom." She became part of the repertoire. So her not being there was made me want to be even better, because I took the raw footage and I flew to Florida the next morning and showed her.
Oh, wow.
So that was the beginning of the personal strife.
Right.
Mom, then dad gets sick with cancer. A week after my mom died, my dad called me and said, we need to talk. I sat down with him. I was like, you're not sick, right? And he's like, I have prostate cancer.
Oh, my God.
And so 9 months, both parents gone. And then stuff with my brother, and then Louis. So it was I had gone from the wave had gotten big, had gotten crazy. Even the backlash and the hate before all that happened, I didn't mind. I like kind of being Darth Vader.
Right.
Thought it was more interesting.
Yeah.
Because I felt interesting when for many years I didn't feel like I had that kind of swagger. So I'm enjoying it until my mom got sick.
Right, because at that point you're like...
Then it wasn't funny anymore.
Yeah, because you're like, fuck all the haters, because I got my foundation. I still got my family, my core. And then that's taken away from me.
Yeah. I'd had haters since I was a little kid.
Yeah, right.
So I didn't... I accepted the fact that in my life, more people probably are not going to be on the same page with me. So I was seeking out true friendships from a very early age, and then in stand-up. I was prepared for all of that.
Right.
It didn't hurt until it hurt. Yeah. And it hurt when I'm trying to deal with my family. I can't focus the same amount of energy on keeping the structure together because I'm hurt. I don't care. I just want to, protect my my family, my mom and my dad, my little sister who, I work with to this day. She means the world to me. She's like my left arm. So all that stuff is happening and then spirals after vicious circle. And it was going to be a tough few years.
Yes, God. So it's like mom, dad dies, brother steals. This stuff happens with Louis. The haters ramp up.
My mentor died a year after. My high school drama teacher, Frank Roberts, wouldn't have been here without him. He put me on stage. He was the first person to instill confidence in me. So he passed away. And then, I started... there was even a couple of local comics in Boston that were kind of like my core guys, and they either one vanished and the other one passed away. So it was like everything was getting really fucking real.
And that was, what year was that? That
was all like 06.
To like 08.
To 08, and then the brother stuff was like 08 to 010, or where I was dealing with all that. Wow. So everything in a 4-year period was happening, and I still hadn't dealt with grief. I didn't know how. Clueless. I just knew one thing.
Because you just feel betrayed by life. Like you just, I get that.
It was nuts. I thought I was going to be broke again. I'd already hit this upper echelon and made the most that I thought I'm safe for the rest of my life. Okay, now I'm not. And I'm already coming down the other side of what might be the biggest summit on the career. Right. I'm going to have a marathon career. I'm going to be doing this when I'm 90.
But I might not make this amount of yes, I got you.
Right?
Who knows?
It's like, that nest egg was gone. Now, fortunately for me, when all that stuff happened, my brother, for people that don't know, my brother stole all my money. My brother stole millions upon millions of dollars from me. He was my business manager.
Well, but I always just say to myself, I'm like, well, geez, like, if somebody can steal that amount of money from you, if you had let's say you had $10 million.
Okay.
If somebody stole 5, you're going to see half your money's gone.
You would think that, right?
Okay, you would think, but then you're not thinking about it because this is your brother.
I just trusted him.
You trusted him.
He betrayed me with love.
It's
the worst kind of betrayal.
But and again, I think this is what makes you a little prickly around people. I think your trust issues, if you have trust issues, that certainly didn't help.
Well, I didn't have a lot of trust issues for most of my life as well. You know what I mean? There was either people that were champions and like made me feel safe, and then there was a lot of people that made me feel frantic, and there was more chaos around me. So now here was somebody that I grew up with that was literally the closest person to me.
Right.
And he was, I say, the piranhas of Hollywood didn't get me, but my brother was the devil. So it was insane. He capsized me, and I thought, okay, if I don't have more success, like I'm gonna have to spend the rest of my life really just like charging away again, like full tilt, and not saying no, the power of no, which is good to have. And I could say,
next thing you know, you're at a Nissan commercial, like, "Hi, this is Dane Cook down at
no,
more
Park." It was a Six Flags. It was a Six Flags commercial.
Oh yeah.
They had me in a crazy pair of glasses, and I was like, "Ride Goliath!"
Yeah.
And they had me on the roller coaster. My hair's whipping back. So I did. I sold out for a minute to try to make rent, but I took the money that he couldn't steal was money that because he had been sending me false bank accounts for many years. False statements.
Oh, got you.
And I wasn't going to the bank and looking because I was
of course not, because you're thinking like, damn, we're doing good. Thanks, bro.
Yeah, I'm just focusing on the creativity and the fan building and all that stuff. So what happens is I have a little bit of money in stocks that he couldn't take. He can't just pull that out. It was like a longer process. So I took the last, couple $100,000 that I had to my name, and I invested in the arenas. So the arenas I rented.
Oh.
I rented 100 arenas over a year because my goal was once he was in jail, I wanted to make back everything he stole in a year.
Oh, wow.
So I rented it. This is what I would do. I rented an arena for whatever, $70,000 on an off night, no basketball game. I'd take the door. I did merch. I take the door, and I literally would sit with my manager, and I'd be like, "How'd we do?" He's like, "All right, well, tonight it's $250,000." I was like, "Rent another."
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Call ahead. Let's rent these two. Let's rent this. And then we rented B arenas, C. It didn't matter.
You know what? Let me tell you something. What's amazing about this? As I'm in the business as a comic. You think that like, how do you get an arena tour? So people think that there's some kind of person. There's some guy calls and goes, "I'm ready, Mr. Arena. This is Mr. Arena. You want to do this?" And no, you're saying no. I did it myself.
Yeah, what I learned was arenas were just like
Just a building.
a hall.
Yeah. They're just like
Yeah.
you could have done a quinceañera there if you wanted to.
Yeah, it didn't matter. You could come in and just jerk off in the middle of an empty space for $75,000.
Yeah, you pay $75,000 and you have somebody go, and now,
But it was
starting lineup for your cookity cooks.
It was at that point that I started feeling safe again. I started feeling like and I felt a feeling of independence that I never felt because I was so close to somebody that was so toxic and I didn't know it. So once he was gone, I was like, oh man, there's so many things that I'm more keen to because I was now standing on my own in a way that he made me feel like I needed him.
Right. Well, that was on purpose, though. That was by design.
Of course. Yeah, he was
by design.
Grooming me in some way to keep me complacent.
Right.
And he was
no more contact?
I haven't spoken to him since the day he went missing.
Oh, he went missing.
He went missing for 2 weeks, and the police arrested him, and he went to jail for, I think he got 8 years, and his wife, who was in cahoots, got 4.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I've never spoken to him, but I still speak with his son. I'm very close with my nephew.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Let's bring him out. Okay, that's terrible.
Your brother's here.
Yeah, your brother's here. He's a boo.
He just comes down on a zip line.
And then like the Jerry boo, they boo him. All right, and then so this leads us to like, I remember how different that next special you did.
That's right.
It was it was just at the Laugh Factory.
Yep.
One camera.
Yeah.
Just a dark black background type of thing, and it's just you on stage. That was the first time I thought to myself, "Ooh, this guy's doing something interesting." Like I really thought that was the first time I was like, "Oh, there's some vulnerability going on here that's beyond all this stardom."
It was a weird gift that my parents passing gave me, which was, hey, you can now share something that's really very, very personal, and hopefully it's going to help me to build my career out in a new way. And why did I want to do that? Interestingly enough, when I was younger, George Carlin, people knew George Carlin as the hippy dippy weatherman.
Right.
He did the hippy dippy weatherman for a lot of years. And then finally, Carlin went on a late night show, might have been the Tonight Show. It's an amazing clip if you can find it on YouTube. And he's standing there with a cardboard cutout of himself as the hippie to be weatherman. But now he's like looking more like Carlin. And he comes on. He's ladies and gentlemen, George Carlin brings the cardboard cutout and he starts off and he goes, a lot of you know him. This guy made a lot of people laugh. I know him. You know him too. And then he took the cardboard cutout and he dropped it. And he goes, but I'm not doing that guy anymore. And I hope that you'll come with me on this new ride. Let's start. And he reinvented himself almost instantaneously by killing the hippy dippy weatherman.
So you feel like the college bro, Dane Cook, the itchy butthole Dane Cook.
Time to grow up.
He's gone.
Yeah.
And then that was the first time you were like,
when I ceased to be a child, I put away childish things.
Yeah.
It was time to really embrace that I'm an adult man. I've got, good things that have happened. Sure. I can share stories that you'll say, wow, I mean, that's something that is so rare to experience, and I can make that funny, but I can also talk about the dark corners of life. You know what I mean? Yes. I made it through.
Yes.
I made it through all that stuff, man. My trials by fire all happened at once. It was just a bonfire for years.
You were in a bonfire, and they were hitting you with a blowtorch.
Here's how I knew it was intense. I finally got a therapist 4.5 years later, and after my first hour, he didn't say a word, and then when I finally finished, he went like this. Fuck.
He had to go to therapy. He's in therapy just like, and then he said,
It was intense, man. It was.
Are you still in therapy?
I still do it from time to time, but I did it like real hardcore for years.
Yeah, I'm doing it now. I really enjoy it. It's very, very helpful.
I think it's the greatest gift you can give yourself.
Well, I find it's the one person that I actually don't have to worry about their feelings.
Right.
And I can just come in and just be like, I need to say this, and this is what's going on, and I can just be vulnerable as I need to be. So I really enjoy it. I think everyone should go to therapy.
Have you read The Four Agreements?
No, I haven't read that one.
Oh, man. Okay. Well, you know what?
Put that on the list.
We can have another conversation, but that's
the one.
As a man, like, this is a book that I think it's a simple, quick read, but it's impacted my life in a major way. So I'm sitting with my therapist and I'm doing all this work, and I take my first break from comedy. First time in 15 years that I took like a legit, I'm not going to go on stage for months and months and months. which was so weird.
Yeah.
It just felt.
It's like a Wednesday, and you're like, I'm supposed to be at that.
And what would happen is I'd just have a date, and then at 11 o'clock at night, the girl would be like, "Man, I like your energy," because I was ready to do a show. So I'd be doing shtick
At the date, you know?
Yes, at dinner.
Don't you hate when the butter and, you know?
And so here I am. I'm like living a regular, having some normalcy, which felt good, and not as much was expected of me because I wasn't as in demand and wasn't
right.
the phone wasn't ringing off the hook, and that felt kind of nice. And then what I did was, and maybe you're doing the same thing. My goal was I want to work as hard on myself as I ever have on my career.
Well,
and that's what I did for that time.
But you know what I'm learning right now in therapy is like I'm learning the things that I didn't know that I needed to work on, you know, like setting boundaries, you know, because that's the thing that I think that is the hardest thing is like, you know, to tell people no and to like, and that be okay. And to like.
See, I got past that. I'm very good at it.
I know, because it took me forever to get you on my
I'm assertive
podcast.
To a fault.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, especially in this town, you know, it's a weird town to be assertive because assertive out here is you're an asshole. And
Right.
why? It's because I'm going to tell you true. I don't like that, or I don't.
You learn to be okay with that. That's the thing.
I'm totally
to
okay
be
with
okay
it.
with the choices that you make.
I'm totally okay with being unfiltered and blunt. I call it like Hull Crush level depths of honesty in my life. Also with myself, when I'm fucking up, I take myself to task. And in my stand-up, I do the same thing where it's like if I'm not working as hard as I need to get to the point, then I don't imagine myself in another place in my life. I say I'm working comic, and I'm not going to be if I don't get funnier.
Do you miss at all that level of the fame that you were at?
Here's what I loved about the highest level of fame that I learned. I loved that I could help more people. Because when you're that gigantic and you say, hey, I want to go to Children's Hospital and I want to bring all the DVDs from planes, or I want to, people are like, okay. So suddenly you're like, whether it was going to Iraq or doing USO stuff, or I don't talk a lot about the charity stuff I did, but I had access to a lot of people to help me. And so when that diminishes, when that starts to close, what you're finding is you're going, you know what? Comedy still feels like comedy. A crowd still feels like a crowd.
Right.
But I may not get the same kind of invites to where it's like, oh, let me participate in doing something that's actually changing the community around me.
Gotcha.
And that's very important to me. You know, that's like one of the highlights of my career. And that's what, even with all this stuff happening again right now, and as it's being regenerated, people reaching out and being like, hey, can you help me with A, B, and C? That's what I love.
That's great, man.
Yeah, man.
You know, it's like and then here you are again. You know, talk about full circle. You've gone through your own vicious circle of life,
Yeah.
and now here you are about to go on again this 49 city tour.
Amazing.
You know, probably adding more things like there. I mean, are you at your most comfortable with yourself right now?
I'm like the happiest I've ever been, because going through everything I went through when I was younger and then experiencing, you know, the pains of life. Well, finally, it was like about 5 years ago. I'm like, hey, you know what? I didn't even have any more parents that can die. I'm done.
You're like, thanks, parents.
I'm signing my own checks now. I'm good. So
you're checking your bank account on your phone now,
you know,
right?
it's like, which, by the way, yeah, that was something I wish had been around at the very, very beginning.
Yeah, because you would have been on the ground floor of that. You would have been depositing your checks. Like, people would have been like, look at Cook. Depositing his checks on his phone like an asshole.
Hindsight, man. The hindsight of all of it.
Yeah.
But where I'm at now is somebody was like, why continue to do it at 30 years in, especially when there's all these new people? And I said, that's the cycle. You know, there's other people that are having their very unique moment of superstardom, or however
whatever it is,
right?
yeah.
And so that has value to go to that show and support somebody who it's their first time doing Madison Square Garden or whatever. That has so much value, but there's also value in coming to see somebody whose pedigree is 30 years in.
Yeah.
And I have, like, when I'm on stage now, I have so many more tools to tell a story. You see me all the time. It's like, I can improv. I can be irreverent.
right.
I'm a storyteller, but I didn't want.
You're also a wordsmith.
I love vernacular.
Yeah,
I love jargon.
That's the thing. I would say.
I love
your
saying
thing.
fuck, but I like saying trepidatious.
Yeah.
I like saying I'm fucking trepidatious today.
Yeah.
So when I'm on stage and I can go to all these different more tools in my arsenal, okay, well, I can just tell more interesting stories. But why it took me so long to do this particular tour was I just didn't want to lose the funny. I wanted as much funny as people when they saw Vicious Circle or Harmful or whatever.
Right.
I don't want it to be a one-man show. No disrespect to one-man shows. I didn't want the maudlin part of it.
Yeah, I know what you're
and so I wanted seriousness. I want to be able to be impactful, but I want to speak to this generation of comedy fans that.
But I don't think there's anything
I grew up with.
I personally wouldn't mind seeing like an old school version of the one man show with you talking about some of the things in your life, these vulnerable moments that you've
Listen,
had.
if this tour doesn't work, and then fucking sign me up, man.
Yeah, it'll be you back at Magic Mountain. Hi, I'm Dane Cook, and I'm still.
No, it's that's I've had some interesting offers. It's just not I've been asked to do Broadway. It's like I want to, but not yet.
What are you waiting on?
This feels right.
Okay, I got you.
This again. This is the first time. This tour is the first time that I've been out there and doing it in a way that like I feel unbridled. Mm-hmm. I'm enjoying that I can bring so much to the table, and I don't have to worry about what's off the table so much anymore. Everything's kind of in a nice little routine and rhythm.
That's great, man.
Yeah, which is why I'm announcing my retirement.
I know, right here and now.
Right now. Fuck this tour.
And we knew you were doing it, and we bring a cake out. You're like, what? How did you fucking... So I know you're like a gamer, too. These are things that people don't know about you. I know
I'm a gamer.
You know you play video games. Yeah. But you know what's funny? When you told me you play video games, you said you played PUBG. I knew that you were this guy, that you're on your thing and you're like, what the fuck are you doing? Get on the side of that.
I'm a commander. I'm the squad leader.
You're the squad leader?
Yeah, I'm a very competitive person. When I'm gaming, whether it's online or board games, if I'm playing like, code names, like I want to win. I love competing.
So you like the Battle Royale games that are out there right now?
Okay,
Which ones are you playing?
I like Battle Royale. I never got it really. Fortnite felt like a Happy Meal come to life.
I'm not with it either. I want to build shit. What am I building something for? You know what I mean? I'm building. People are building the Taj Mahal and the fucking thing, and I'm like, what is that?
Yeah, it's like so that was not appealing to me as that whole element of the game. But I like the tactical of PUBG. And then I tried Blackout, and I wasn't into it.
What? That is so much better than PUBG. I don't even get what you're saying right now.
I'm going to walk out of this.
That's it?
Okay.
It just
ready?
to black.
I can break it down why Blackout fails. Ready?
It doesn't fail.
You can't lean around a corner.
Oh, God.
You have to come out completely from around a corner. And then strafe back in. That's bullshit. If you were in life hunting somebody, would you go like this and come out and show your whole body? Or would you...
Okay, there's one thing. Yeah, but the PUBG...
Add lean, and maybe I'll come back.
The PUBG rendering, I can't stand that.
Who cares? It's throwback. It looks retro.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
It's like the original Unreal Engine from...
everybody looks like a green man. Everybody's like...
It's not... Okay, it's not like that.
It's so choppy. Yes, it's choppy. I can't stand it.
Okay.
Now, have you tried the Apex?
Apex Legends.
Apex Legends is
like... I'm kind of digging that, man.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
I think they toned down the cartoonness of Fortnite.
Yes.
And they brought the graphics of Black Ops.
I think it's my favorite next to PUBG, but there's one problem with it. No leaning.
You and your leaning.
No leaning. And no prone. You can't go prone.
Oh,
okay? I'm a sniper.
Oh, my God.
I'm a sniper. What am I going to do? Sit on a crate and sit on boxes? Fuck that. I want to lay down in the grass.
Okay. All right. This is just they just put it out. This is gonna be.
I hope that they.
There's gonna be a what do you call it? A update.
Okay, good.
So these are the only games that you play?
Apex Legend. What else? Tried Anthem, which is kind of like Destiny, which I know that you're.
I love Destiny.
Every time I log on, you're on there.
Here's my problem with Anthem. That was the shit rollout. Okay. It
right.
was so choppy. You couldn't log in.
Right.
You had to turn your Xbox off, turn it back on. There was that was a big mistake on their part.
Yeah, but
because we want games to just work. This Apex just worked. You got on, you're playing.
Anthem had
looks like it's going to be good though.
Had problems out of the gate. But Apex, it feels like Titanfall. I wish there were Titans in it, but But those are the only things that I've been playing. Really, is the battle royale.
You like those kind?
I
no
tapped
sports
out of
games or anything like that?
No, I've never been in. I love sports, but I hate Madden and all those games.
Yeah, the only game I really like to play sports wise is the soccer. I like FIFA.
Yeah.
Because you have the most control over what happens.
Right.
These other games, it's a lot has to do with like the AI, and I don't want to be involved with that.
You know what? I hate the color green. And so I don't like any of those games. I think that's what it is. I just hate fields of green. It's just not. It's not something I want to look at.
That's such an odd thing.
Hey man, this is what we do for a living. Odd observations.
I guess you hate the green. Wow.
There's nothing better than saying something. And people, I didn't realize that about myself.
Like
I don't want to look at green. I don't want to look at a yellow background either. So it's like there's certain colors that are appealing to me, and those colors are in PUBG.
I got you. Now, I see that you're also still keeping yourself in pretty good shape.
I'm in the best shape of my entire week.
I'm about to say, he better not say life.
It's tough, man. 46.
Yeah.
Here's what happens at 46 that I didn't realize. You wake up in the morning, you look in the mirror, and you're like, oh, man, my face needs to wake up. And then an hour later, you look and you're like, oh, fuck, I was awake.
Oh shit, are we still
right? You're like, oh
yeah,
shit,
man.
okay.
I'm with you.
But if anything, it motivates me to want to continue. I work out every day, and all that
well,
stuff.
good for you. I'm trying. That. I started boxing.
Okay,
which
I see your videos, man.
You know what I hate is like I'm trying my best.
Yeah,
I put up a video.
I'm proud of you.
And then people are like, oh man, slowest hands on the planet. Like, you think I'm going to fight? You think I'm going to,
I'm not going to name names, but we know plenty of people posting boxing videos, and they're speeding them up to make it look like they're faster. So I
didn't even know that was an option. That's what.
Listen to the music in the background. It's like
that's true.
two tempos.
It's like Benny Hill. You know what I mean? Which is one of my favorite shows when I was a kid.
Oh man, me too. A boob would come on every once in a while. You'd be like fucking blown away, and that was on regular TV.
The regular television. Like, can you imagine in this day and age right now with Me Too and everything that's going on for Benny Hill to be on the air? There's no way that a show like that would be on the air right now.
No,
right?
It would be he'd just run by somebody, and the wind would make their tit pop out.
And then it would be like tit gate,
right? And then that music would kick in, and just somebody's boob would bounce around really fast for a while.
Yeah, they don't even do that stuff anymore.
That's when I knew that I liked girls.
Benny Hill.
I watched Benny Hill, and I was like,
For me, it was Wonder Woman.
Oh, okay, yeah, that too.
Yeah, she would just spin around, and all her clothes would come off.
Yeah.
But that's what would happen. I mean,
that's like your dream girl.
Yeah,
you just spin in her clothes.
Wonder Woman.
Right? And now we're in an age where they want us to spin, and the clothes just come on.
Yeah. Clothes and respect. You know what I mean? What do you actually think about what do you think about the Me Too movement? What do you think? Has it made you more thoughtful? How about that? Has it changed your comedy? Because you were a bro's bro. There'd be times when in your younger years,
right,
that you had some not inappropriate, but what I'm saying, it was guy stuff.
Yeah, sure. I feel like I think that it's good for the comedy world, even though I know some people would smash me for this and say like, no, it's inhibiting people from being able to. No, it's like, okay, a lot of that material is old age thinking, and I feel like people need to be. We need to change as a civilization, man.
I totally agree.
We're evolving. We're equal. It's like you think about it, you go, oh man, women weren't voting before 1960. It's like insane to think that. So much has happened in such a little amount of time that for me, as a person that never really wanted to focus on saying things that were so, with vitriol,
right?
I think it's good. I think it makes the playing field more even, fair, and I also think that it invites more people in that are unique and very different. So I like it.
That's what I thought was crazy about that game, Epic's game, by the way. It's like, all the characters.
Yeah.
Like all the characters is like, this one white guy.
Right. Yeah, it's like, no, I got to be the robot. If I want to be a guy, I got to be a droid to at least have some.
But I feel like, as you start to do material, if you have, say, sexist material, or if you have like something that's like, anti,
right.
Now I just feel like it's just making us have to be more thoughtful. And I think that's okay. Like, you don't have to not talk about those things,
right,
but it just takes some time to really develop it.
Yeah, I think that there's still going to be somebody out there who's going to set themselves apart and can say things that are like, holy shit moments.
Yeah.
And deliver it in a way that's like, oh man, that's true, and it's still hardcore, but it's not devaluing people like if you look at some of the earlier material like that we've seen many, many years ago. So I think it's good for the populace. I think it's good for everybody that we're feeling more quality, and I think that's also good for comedy because then we can dig at each other a little bit more because we know we're on a level playing field. When you're hitting on somebody when you're hitting somebody who's like already marginalized, it's like that's even worse when I see that happening.
Yeah, good for you, man. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I think that.
But you do know.
I know. I just.
Your therapist would say, but you do know.
I know. Why do you feel that way? No, but. I don't know, man. I'm really glad that you came on and we got to know a little bit more about you, or I got to know a little bit more.
A little bit of what more? Ask me the question.
No, I mean, because
we got to know a little bit more.
I don't think you can learn about somebody in an hour. That's why I say it's a little bit.
Okay, so this is part one. Let's say this is part one.
This is just part one. I want you to come on again another time. It will be even more comfortable.
Okay.
And I wish you the best on the tour.
Thank you.
And, maybe you'll see me out there on tour with Mr. Cook.
I just asked, would you like to
on record
come on a couple of dates? And lovingly, he said that he would like to.
Yes, I would
to do that
because it is a kind of like competitive business, and it is one of these things where people have their egos involved and stuff. But like, I'm at an age where it's like I don't care about that kind of stuff anymore. I'm like, yeah, let me go. So you're saying let me come on a couple of dates and play in front of a large crowd and have a good time?
Beautiful theaters.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to figure that out.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is, I mean, people listen to this conversation, hopefully had a few laughs, get a little bit of insight, but truly, just like my comedy has been for the last 15 years, like come to the show. If you really want to know where I'm at, and if you really want to have an amazing full night of comedy, then I can guarantee it. I know when people come out, because I did these shows last year and people were overwhelmingly saying, please go out and do like a full tilt tour.
Oh, that's great, man.
Yeah, I'm ready to go, man.
I mean, it's something that's great about, like, that's the thing about this. No matter what you've done with movies, with television, records, specials, all of that aside, there's nothing like being in front of a live audience and then also interacting with them afterwards.
Yeah, and there's even better to that is like, when you're past the point where so much is expected of you to stay at a certain status, that's impossible for anybody. Elvis or Tom Cruise, everybody's got to take their licks. And so to be at a point in my life and career where I can bring more to the table and to be able to entertain people with greater options, that's the kind of show you want. That's the show I want to see. I've gone and seen Aerosmith. I didn't even know how many times in my life. I went through periods in my life I didn't like the music. There wasn't albums that I loved, but I sticked with them, and you watch them go through this thing. Now you're seeing them see the world from a whole different perspective. So I'm
that's where we are right now.
I'm the old bull now. I'm not the young bull, and I'm so happy to be the old bull and to be able to sit and have conversations with my bros like this, man.
Well, I wish you all the best, and I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic tour, and I know that that's not even going to be the end of it. I mean, your story has not been written yet. The ending has not been written on your story.
Unless I'm murdered.
Yeah, well, you still have a toilet to die on. That'll be the thing. Like you'll go out like Elvis, right? That'll be like that's how I want to go out. But I want to thank you for coming on. I truly appreciate it, and I know it was like a weird time of day to come out here all the way to the All Things Comedy Studio. But I look forward to having you on again and seeing you out there. And like I said, I wish you all the best, and I really appreciate you coming on.
You're a sweetheart, man. Thank you for having me on your show, and continued success on your end.
I appreciate it.
And by the way, we talked a lot about me, but you're a funny motherfucker too.
Oh, we're gonna have a whole
next
episode
time I'll interview.
That.
Okay, I'm gonna interview.
Yeah,
this
we'll
guy.
do that. You know what? We're gonna do that.
Flip the
we'll
script.
Flip it.
Can I wear the glasses?
And
a stash? Can I wear a stash?
Here we go, everybody. He wants to wear the stash. At least you didn't say the same joke everybody says. Does that come off? That's like I think I want to sell this for Halloween.
I think it's already been sold for Halloween.
Yeah, but not with my name on it. Okay. You know what I mean?
You could have Riffin with Griffin on the side.
Yeah, on the side, like some Riffin with Griffin. This
Put that on the merch page.
The entrepreneur. I'm still learning from Dane Cook. Next thing you know, I'm sending them out of my trunk. People are like, what are you doing? Just come inside. I think I got to do it this way. But anyways, that's another fantastic episode of Riffin with Griffin, the great Dane Cook. I appreciate him coming on. And you guys keep listening, keep sending me comments, keep sending in theme songs, guys, because I don't know if you can top today's theme song. Every week it seems to get topped. We keep going higher and higher, so let's keep doing that. And thanks for listening. And this has been Erik Griffin, and we're signing off.